Alright, Automanga here. So I made a video previously talking about the issues that you can have in lubrication system, the failures that you can have. And somewhere in the video, I talked about having high quality oil. So I decided to make a video about synthetic oil, which is like the high performance oils that we know. So synthetic oil are actually very, very important, and they are becoming the norm, in the driving environment today, because it helps in a lot of ways. It makes things easier. So let me just try to explain what it is, the advantages, the disadvantages, and the use cases. So synthetic oil is simply a man-made lubricant which is created from the chemically engineered process rather than being directly gotten from crude oil. The regular oil that we have, which is the one that which is very common everywhere, is simply gotten from crude oil. That is the way we know that oil is being gotten, from the crude source, which is also referred to as the mineral oil. So, however, because it has low quality in terms of lasting, in terms of withstanding pressure, temperature, and the rest of that, it is easier for it to break down. And because it breaks down easily, it can lead to you changing your oil more frequently. It can lead to formation of sludge in your system and a lot of other issues that it can come up with. However, because of all this, in order to combat all this, another oil was designed, and this one was actually created in the lab. This is not a natural occurring oil. So synthetic oil is not a natural occurring oil, but rather is a product of engineering, and scientists coming together and making sure that they get something that is able to last for a longer period of time. So it is designed for performance enhancement. They have additives and everything added to it to make sure that this oil is able to last longer, lubricate more, withstand pressure, withstand temperature, and give high performance at all time. So that is actually what is known as the synthetic oil. So for example, you can have your conventional, let's say your 5W30 motor oil, which is your petroleum based oil, and it will be thick at low temperature. When it is cold, it will be thick. But when the temperature is high, it will become thin. That is the normal way it's supposed to operate. But in order to make it, for cold starting, in order to make it to work higher or work better, additives have been added, so that it can maintain a good viscosity almost at all temperature. But for synthetic oil, it is designed to maintain that viscosity. It is usually thinner, and it maintains that for a longer period and for different temperature range. That is what is actually that is one of the good characteristics of this synthetic oil, and that is why it is very, very important and very, very interesting to use. Now let's go down and talk about the more benefits, which I'm already sharing already. Better lubrication. Let me mark this so that we can know where we are. Better lubrication. When you talk about better lubrication for synthetic oil, it means that it provides superior lubrication. It reduces engine wear and extends engine life because it is able to go to places where it is supposed to go to, and is able to stay in those areas irrespective of the temperature, irrespective of the pressure. Now, also talk about the temperature, whether it's operating at a high temperature or not, whether the pressure is high or not, it's able to resist that. So it gives you better lubrication at all time. And then it can also work at high temperature. Maybe the engine is heating up or whatever thing, the oil will maintain its quality, for most part of it. So it will not degrade easily. And another important one is the improved cold weather performance. This is very, very important. When you're starting your motor from cold, there's a likelihood that the oil will not get to the places where it needs to get to very quickly until the engine heats up. When you start the engine, when the engine warms up, that is when the oil becomes thinner. Remember what I talked about, the regular oil, which is the mineral oil. It's usually thick, at lower temperature. But when the engine becomes warm, then the oil will become thinner, and then it will be able to go through and circulate very well. But for synthetic oil, even from the cold start, it's already thin. It is designed to be thin, so it can go through areas where it's supposed to go through even at cold start. So that's a very good benefit, very important benefit of synthetic oil. And then you have longer change interval. This is also important because the way the oil is designed, the regular oils that we have, when you run for 2-3 months, you're expected to change it 2,000 miles, 3,000 miles, depending on the kind of oil you're using. You're expected to change it, because it's going to form sludge, it's going to degrade, and that can begin to affect other parts of the engine. So, but for synthetic oil, it's designed to last longer. So if you are using synthetic oil, you will not be changing your oil much frequently. You might have to stay up to 5 months, 6 months before you need to change it, 5,000 miles, 7,000 miles before you need to change the oil. So it's a very good and important benefit. It helps you save money, and reduces the time you need to go to the workshop to make oil change. Now, engine, it enhances engine cleanliness. This is also important because even the regular oil actually does good cleaning. It cleans, but for synthetic oil, it is actually designed to also enhance the cleanliness. So more additives and everything is added to make sure that whatever surface it is going through, it is cleaning that surface. Particles there is going to drag them along. It's going to make sure that the surface of your bearings, the metal part, and everywhere it is passing through is always clean. So it's a very, very important quality that you expect. It's one of the benefits that you get. It resists sludge, which is very, very important because the regular oil, it breaks down quickly, and so it forms sludge quickly, and that can reduce the efficiency of your engine. But when you are making use of synthetic oil, it resists that possibility of forming sludge very quickly because it doesn't break down easily at high temperature. So you will not have issues of having sludge in your system because it's able to last longer and able to work at a very long height without having to clog your system. So cleanliness is very important. Now, the another one you have is a better fuel economy. This is actually very important. It saves you fuel. It reduces the engine friction, which can lead to slight improvement in fuel efficiency. This is not very pronounced, but when you break it down, you understand that it is very important because as long as your engine is very efficient, the fuel usage is not going to be high. When everything is moving the way they are supposed to move, the bearings and every point are well lubricated, so the locomotion is smooth. You will not use up much fuel compared to when there is dragging in the system. When the system is dragging because the oil is not enough, or when the system is dragging because the oil is not that very efficient, that can lead to usage of much more oil. The system is going to burn more oil. But in this case, if you are using synthetic oil and everything is working out fine, there's no much friction in the system, there will be improvement in the movement. And when there's improvement, you don't need to burn more fuel. So it saves you fuel. And then fewer impurities, which is the last one. This for highly refined synthetic oil, it means that the contaminants in the system will be lower compared to the conventional oil. Because remember, this is not a natural occurring oil. This is built, this is designed, this is manufactured in the lab. So everything that goes into it is calculated and filtered and monitored and everything like that. It's not a natural occurring oil, because the natural occurring oil can actually have some impurities along the way. It doesn't mean it is not well filtered. It doesn't mean it's not well produced. But the likelihood of the synthetic oil having impurities compared to the natural occurring oil, which is the regular oil or the mineral oil, is actually very low. So it has fewer impurities. So that's some of the benefit that you enjoy when you use synthetic oil. Now let's go to disadvantage. Yeah, as much as it has a lot of advantages that will make you to want to use them, they also have disadvantages. One of them, which is the popular one, is the high cost. It's actually very, very expensive compared to the regular oil. So in fact, this is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't even use it, because they'll be like, how would they spend so much money buying oil when they can use that same money to buy the lower grade oil, buy two of it instead of buying one of synthetic oil. So it's actually of higher cost, but the higher cost is justified because of the advantages that you get from it. So that's one of the disadvantages. And then you have the potential for oil leaks. This is also very important. There's a possibility that for older engines, if you use synthetic oil, it will result to leakage, because older engines that were not designed with synthetic oil in mind, they didn't design them with synthetic oil in mind, there's possibility that you have leakages. Because remember, like I said before, the synthetic oil has lower viscosity because it is designed to be thinner so that it can go through the places where it needs to go through very easily and very smoothly and very quickly. So there is possibility that if you use it for older engines, it is going to leak because it is very thin, at high temperature or whatever, it's going to leak. But this is not, it's not that it will always happen, but there is possibility that this can happen. And that is why there is also a grade that is designed for older engine, which I'll talk about later. So just stick to the video. I'll talk about that one later. So now we also have, it is not always necessary. I mean, I know we are talking about efficiency and smoothness and everything like that, but some older engines are designed for conventional oil, and that is it. So, and they benefit more from that and not using synthetic oil. So it might not really be necessary for you to use synthetic oil for some engines, some big engines or some old engines. It's not really necessary. So just stick to the conventional oil. And then you have environmental concern. This one is more about pollution and the rest of that. But although it lasts longer, the synthetic oil is not biodegradable. That is one of the disadvantages. Even though it lasts longer in your vehicle, you can use it for up to 6 months or thereabouts. 7,000 miles, 10,000 miles, it lasts longer, so the oil change is less. It is less frequent. But also because it is designed in the lab, it is not a natural oil and all of that, it's not biodegradable, so there's a possibility of it having environmental impact. So that is one of the disadvantages of having the synthetic oil. So let's move to the next one. We have the types of synthetic oil. Now the popular one on the one on the list is the fully synthetic oil. This is like the grade 1 of it. This is like fully synthetic oil, which is what you talk about when you talk about synthetic oil, because it is made from base stock. Actually, it's designed to have better performance than the regular oil. So it's actually better than the rest of them, which you have the synthetic blend, the high mileage, and the fully synthetic means it is completely synthetic. So it's actually designed for what it is. But when you talk about the second one, let me explain the second one so that you might use it to understand the first one. Synthetic blend is actually a mixture, a simple mixture between the synthetic oil and the regular oil. You understand? When you mix the two of them, the regular conventional oil and synthetic oil, it will give you a synthetic blend, which is also good because this one is actually better than the conventional oil because it has a mixture of synthetic oil. But fully synthetic means it's not mixed with the regular oil, rather it is fully designed, fully manufactured as synthetic oil, so it has more performance, it has better performance than the regular conventional oil. And then you have the third one, which is the high mileage oil. Now this, like I was saying before about older engines, so a lot of people don't get to use cars for high when they have higher mileage. When they have higher mileage, they dispose of them and get a new one. So but for those who use cars above, let's say 200 miles, that is where you start having issues. And so this type of oil is actually designed for older cars. So when the cars start becoming old, the parts are becoming worn out, there's possibility of leakages and all of that. This oil is designed for that. So remember where I said something about not being necessary, in this case not being necessary using synthetic oil when you have older cars, and because of the parts and everything, the way it's been designed, this oil is designed to help in that situation. So when you have older cars, you can make use of high mileage oil, which is not very common, but it is something that you can make use of because they are designed to be more stable in higher or lower engines that are not of high efficiency, or engines that are old, like up to 200 or 200 miles or 100, let's say, is it up to 200, even 120,000 and all of that. When the engine start getting that old, I say 120,000 is even a better number to give. So when the engine start getting that old, so you use a high mileage oil. And then you have the semi-synthetic oil. This is the last one, which is a blend of the mineral oil and the synthetic oil, but it offers better performance and production than mineral oil. So this is more like the second one I talked about, which is the synthetic blend. But this one is semi-synthetic. So this one is not a fully synthetic oil, but it is actually a synthetic oil, but it's not fully because it is semi. It means that it's a blend of oil, this mineral oil and synthetic oil. But this one, remember, it's almost like the synthetic blend. But the difference is that for the synthetic blend, it's simply a mixture of the synthetic oil and the conventional oil. But for this one, the synthetic, for the semi-synthetic, is a blend. It's actually blended. So this one is more refined compared to this. So it is important to understand the difference. So these are the types of synthetic oil that we have. So when you are trying to get one, you should know what you are getting. So let's move to the next one. So synthetic oil change interval. This is a very controversial issue because there are ratings whereby it is said to be around 5,000 to 7,000 miles that is expected for you to change it, or thereabout. But also in most synthetic oil, it is rated to last between 10,000 to 15,000 miles, or 6 months to a year. Now, the important thing to understand here is that it's not really about the mileage sometimes, the manufacturers or the manufacturer's timing, because the manufacturer can say 10,000 to 15,000 miles, but based on the usage of the engine, it might not be efficient for you to do that. It might not be good for you to do that because, okay, let's say for example, you drive less than 10,000 miles a day, and you don't drive on highway, so the speed is not usually high. So because of that, the engine does not get to heat up a lot. And when the engine is not heating up a lot, getting to high temperature, it is not boiling off the condensations that is accumulating in the system. And you know what that does? That will eventually lead to breaking down of the oil very quickly. So you will not expect someone that is running at a high temperature always for high distance and someone that is running at a low temperature always for lower distance to have the same period or duration of oil usage. No, when you use it for a high period or for high temperature, then the oil get to boil off the condensations and it get to last longer. But when you're not using it for a longer period, maybe you're not driving on highway, you're not going to far distance in a day, and then you don't expect the oil to last as much as the person that is using it for longer. So when the oil is not being used, when the engine is not being used for longer duration, higher temperature, so the oil is not warming up a lot, it will be advisable to change it before this timing that is being recommended here. But when you're using it at optimal temperature, then you can talk about, yes, it lasting longer. A lot of people say, a lot of indications have it to be around 7,000, 5,000 to around 7,000 miles that you're expected to change it, good and fine. But some will recommend 10,000 to 15,000 miles. So you use your discretion. As you use it, you begin to see the way the oil is performing, see the nature of the oil as you check the oil, and then it will advise you. And of course, talk to your technician and your mechanic, and they also advise you on when to change and how it is required, maybe a 6-month period or thereabout. But remember, one of the important advantages of using the synthetic oil is because it extends the period of change compared to the regular oil. The regular conventional oil, in 3 months or thereabout, you're expected to change it because it will start forming sludge, and that will affect the performance of your engine. But for synthetic oil, it will not form sludge that quickly, or not form sludge at all in most cases. But even though it will still degrade due to use over a period of time. So when synthetic oil always makes sense, remember, like I said, there's a place I talked about it not being necessary. Sometimes it's not necessary to have synthetic oil. You can just use your regular oil and still get your engine or efficiency. But when it is always important and when it always makes sense, let's say, for example, for high performance engine, when you are dealing with SUVs or higher end engines, when you have spent a lot of money buying your SUVs, you don't expect to spend money to buy that and then you are using lower grade oil. It doesn't make sense. Remember, these engines are built for performance and reliability. So if you need them to actually perform optimally, it will be advisable to have your synthetic oil always in those engines. And then you have high performance engine. When you're talking about motorsport, fast moving cars, when you're going on a racetrack, it is important to also use high performance engine oil, which is synthetic oil in this case. When you're using that, it's going to ensure that the engine is working at high efficiency, even when under pressure and even when at high temperature. The synthetic oil will not degrade, and so you always get efficient system. You always get the system to work efficiently. This is very important. And then the third one is the luxury car engine. Remember, luxury cars are built and are designed to give comfort, and more importantly, they are very, very expensive to buy. So you will not expect, when you spend a lot of money getting the luxury cars, it will not make a lot of sense to now use lower grade oil for your luxury cars that you spent money to buy. So the engines are delicate, and the engines are powerful, but they're also delicate. So it's advisable to make use of synthetic oil. That is a time then when it is very necessary and makes a lot of sense to use synthetic oil. Now, extreme cold start. This one is also very important. Remember, I talked about the viscosity, that the synthetic oil is actually designed or manufactured in such a way whereby it is actually very thin. So this helps when you're talking about cold starts, because they can handle cold starts with no cranking and the oil pressure problem or temperature problem or whatever thing. Because once it's starting, the oil is going to where it needs to go to, because it is thin. It is not waiting for the engine to warm up or the oil to move around. The oil is already thin and is moving around, so you have efficiency always. So it's actually very good for cold start in situations where you have to always have cold starts. Synthetic oil is very, very good. So you have extended draining, which I've also talked about slightly, which is you don't drain your oil frequently. Regular oil within 2-3 months, depending on the driving, you'll be needed to change them because of sludge. But when you're using synthetic oil, you can use it for a longer period, up to 6 months, sometimes even up to a year, depending on your usage. Remember, I talked about usage. The usage will determine how long it will last for you. So if you're not engaging the engine always at high temperature and for a longer period, it will be advisable to change the oil, before that period that is recommended by the manufacturer. But if you are using your engine at optimal capacity and optimal efficiency, you're heating it up, you're going for long distance, the oil is always warming up and burning up everything, so you can use it for a longer period. So that is very good. That is very important for you to have at the back of your mind. And then we have the towing and high load. This is also very important. If you run at lower speed and a high load, this can actually degrade the oil very, very quickly. When you are moving at a lower speed and high load, in case where you are towing or carrying load, it can degrade the oil very, very quickly. So in order to prevent that, when you use synthetic oil, remember, synthetic oils are built to be able to resist pressure and to resist high temperature. So even if you are running at a high temperature, high pressure, whatever, the synthetic oil is built to be able to withstand that and not break down easily. So it is important, and it makes a lot of sense to make use of synthetic oil in this kind of situation. And the long engine life, which is, this one is common sense. A vast majority of the people don't use use cars for a longer period, over 200,000 miles, because it's easier to get a car these days, car insurance and the rest of them. Once you feel your car is getting older, getting 100,000 miles or thereabouts, you're already thinking of changing it. 150, you are changing it. So a lot of people don't get to use cars over that period. But for those who eventually get to use it for a longer period, synthetic oil will make a lot of sense. Remember, I talked about it having there's a special one that's designed for older engines or for older cars. So when you make use of those ones, it can ensure that the engine continues to perform at high efficiency even when they are older. So the engine will last longer because you are using a good grade oil. So this is something you should always have in mind. So these are some of the things about the synthetic oil, and I hope that it makes sense to you. If you have questions pertaining synthetic oil or something you want me to talk about that you think I omitted, please let me know and I will try to explain that. So please, if you are just coming across this channel, I would like that you like, share and subscribe, and thank you for watching.